The only candidate I'll support for president in 2024 is named Tammy Taylor. Look her up, y'all. In mid-April, Liz Cheney was asked a straightforward question by Fox News' Neil Cavuto. If Donald Trump were the 2024 nominee, would you support him? And the Wyoming House Republican gave an equally straightforward answer, quote, "I would not," end quote, which created an entire news cycle about how Cheney, the third-ranking Republican in House leadership, was one of the only elected Republican officials willing to speak out in opposition to the former president's future presidential plans, and how her outspokenness could cost her in 2022 as Trump works to primary her, which the ex-president added to, of course, with this statement released shortly after Cheney made her comment, quote, "She is so far down in Wyoming polls that the only way she can win is numerous candidates running against her and splitting the vote. Hopefully, that won't happen. I'll make an endorsement soon," end quote. Why is endorsement capitalized? Now look, that's all interesting, but it's also not surprising. Cheney's vote to impeach Trump over his actions and lack thereof on January 6th and the statement she issued to explain her vote established her as a leading voice opposed to Trump's ongoing influence within the Republican Party. And Trump's desire to exact revenge on anyone who dares criticize him is the stuff of legend. It's, well, kind of his thing. The real storyline here isn't either of those two things, however. It's this. Why is Cheney a lone voice in the wilderness when it comes to not wanting Trump to run again and not being willing to back him if he does? If not for principled reasons, then for raw political calculation. As in, it's very hard to see how Trump could possibly win a majority of the vote in the country if he was the Republican presidential nominee in 24. And the why is simple. The worst possible situation for any politician is to be A, totally known, and B, broadly disliked, which is exactly where Trump finds himself at the moment. Trump is universally known by voters in the country, but just 34% of Americans approve of the job he did as president, according to the final Gallup poll of his presidency, which was conducted from January 4th to January 15th. In that same poll, just 4% of self-identified Democrats and 30% of independents said they had approved of how Trump had handled the office. Now, that poll was in the field during the darkest day of the Trump presidency, the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. And it also captured the fallout from Trump's initial incitement of the crowd and then his decidedly slow reaction to the violence playing out once the Capitol was breached. Which means that the Gallup number likely caught Trump at his lowest possible ebb, or at least somewhere close to it. But even so, it's very hard to imagine how Trump doesn't remain deeply damaged goods to the general electorate in 2024. Democrats, even many who consider themselves moderates and conservatives, will never consider voting for him because of his actions in office, all of which culminated with that January 6th riot and its aftermath. And it's almost as hard for me, at least, to imagine how independents, who tend to be swayed by the mood of the country and the state of the economy, would opt for Trump in 2024 amid what is almost certain to be a boom time in America, economically and otherwise, following our emergence from the year-long battle against the COVID-19 virus. So, given all of that, just put it all together. It seems to me that the most politically savvy course of action for Republicans like Liz Cheney, who are intent on winning back the White House in 2024, would be to support literally anyone other than Trump for the nomination. Look, all of the Republicans being mentioned for 2024, from Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton to Missouri Senator Josh Hawley to Maryland Governor Larry Hogan to former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie and all the rest, have a far more solvable political problem than Donald Trump does. None of them are as well known or as broadly disliked by the general electorate. All of them will have the chance over the next few years to introduce themselves to voters or change some negative perceptions that may exist about them among voters. Donald Trump can't do either of those two things. Views on him are cemented. That was me being cemented. In voters' minds, and he has shown zero ability or willingness to change the way in which he carries himself in the public eye. Although, I'll note, I don't think at this point if Trump suddenly turned over a new leaf as a consensus builder, it would change how anyone thought of him anyway. So, why is Liz Cheney on an island, this is me on an island, and seeing how little chance Trump has of winning when compared to the rest of the 2024 aspirants? Well, she isn't. She's just the only one, or one of the only ones, willing to say it publicly. Because the paradox of Trump is that while he's utterly damaged in a general election, he may well be unbeatable in a Republican presidential primary. which is why the likes of former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley have ruled out running in 2024 if Trump is in the race, because they figure, well, what's the point? Fear. Fear remains the dominant emotion when it comes to how Republican elected officials view Donald Trump. And it's that fear that could well relegate them to a near certain second Trump loss in 2024 unless they find some political courage between now and then. And that is the point. We make New Point episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. Be sure to check them all out.